Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. Friday night here, coming up on 7:30 Eastern Time on the 24th of August 2018. And we are going to start off tonight with Hurricane Lane, which continues to pound the big island of Hawaii with heavy rains. Many areas on the east and south shore of the big island of Hawaii getting 20 to 30 inches of rain. You've probably seen some of the pictures that have come from there of the raging rivers and streams and the flooding. And the Weather Service in Hawaii, the Central Pacific Hurricane Center in their advisory is calling it catastrophic flooding for the Big Island. All of this, as William Huber points out, is coming on the day of the anniversary of Hurricane Andrew back in 1992, late first hurricane of the season. And that was one of only 3 Category 5 hurricanes to hit the United States. Camille in 1969, whose anniversary we just passed, and the Labor Day Keys storm back in the middle 1930s. So we're going to start right off with Hurricane Lane, and we're going to take a look and see what is happening here. With regards to Hurricane Lane, I was going to bring up front and center the satellite loop. Hang on. Let's see if I got the right window here. Yes, we do. I've got the visible satellite loop. Look at the difference in terms of the structure between what we had just 2 days ago as a Category 5 hurricane and what we have now. This is what wind shear does to systems. It basically stretches them out and rips them apart. And you can see the cloud tops, the bright white cloud tops moving southwest to northeast. There's 40 knots of shear going on here. And as a result, while this is still a hurricane, you are also beginning to see the low-level center on the south side getting exposed. This is how strong the shear is. So there could be some rapid weakening going on at this point. We'll find out when the Hurricane Center does its next advisory and the one that follows. So we have the 5 p.m. Eastern Time, the 11 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time advisory that we're working with now. But you definitely can see the low-level center coming away, the cloud tops being blown away to the northeast, and that low-level center being exposed. I'm wondering there's probably still some strong winds to hurricane force because of just the sheer momentum of the system from the last several days. It probably takes a little while for the winds to come down a bit, but you start to look at this satellite loop, and you got to really wonder whether this is at best now, a weak a Cat 1, or maybe just a bare minimal hurricane, the way it looks. I mean, the satellite presentation to me from the standpoint of a hurricane looks pretty awful. But this is a lot of tropical moisture, and the result has been a ton of rain. The east and south-facing shores of the Big Island getting hit pretty hard. And these are Doppler radar estimates. You're starting to see some white dots of 15 inches or more, large area of 10 inches plus. But there have been reports of much more, double those amounts in some areas. And I believe it, judging from how much moisture has been pouring in. Here's the current radar, which shows the next round of heavy rain. The greenish box, the greenish outline here marks the flash flood warning that has been up now for the last 2 days. And we've got some very heavy downpours sitting there over the south-facing part of the island again. There hasn't been that much on the northwestern side, on the other side of the mountains, which is not a huge surprise. And I'll loop this. These are some of the bands that are to the east of the hurricane that have moved on in, and they are impressive in terms of the rainfall. That's a pretty solid band here of downpours that's working its way through. I'm going to move up. That's from the South Shore radar. The Kohala radar gives us the view from the north, and you can see there's quite a bit of activity now moving into the western part of the island, and also over the island of Maui and the other islands to the northwest from there. The core of the hurricane is still offshore, probably going to get to within 60 or 70 miles of Honolulu before it makes the turn. We're waiting for this turn to happen, but in the meantime, it's only moving at about 2 or 3 miles an hour in terms of the center, which is just all that means is that all this rain is just going to continue. Right now, at least for Oahu, the northeastern part of the island seeming to get more rain. Right now, it looks like the southwestern side is a bit on the dry side. The heavier bands are actually up to the north, out into the open waters of the Pacific. But you can see the counterclockwise rotation here. So there's the bands that are east of the Big Island, which is on the lower right here of your picture. They're coming in and moving northeastward and then rotating up and around. So until this system gets completely out of the way, and it may not be for another couple of days, and even so, there's going to be so much tropical moisture here to deal with that rains are likely to continue probably through the weekend, and in some cases there'll probably still be some around early next week. But here's the Hurricane Center's official forecast. So you've got tropical storm warnings up for the Big Island, hurricane warnings up for Maui, Oahu, and then you have the watch that's still up for the westernmost island. The green area is the area of gales, and the fringe gales are touching the Big Island, the western shore of the Big Island, and also the southern shores of Maui, not quite to Oahu. And you notice the track moving actually due east of north before the Hurricane Center turns it to the northwest and then sharply to the west. If we're seeing what we're seeing on the satellite loop, where the low-level center is becoming decoupled from the main convection because of the shear, you're going to see this turn take place faster, and it wouldn't shock me at all. I'm going to go back to that shot here. I'll give the loop a quick refresh, and I'll speed it up just a tad. Yeah, you can just about to begin to see the southern part of that low-level center getting exposed. There's also some pretty, these cloud tops being blown off to the northeast, very obvious, and there's a band that runs just southwest of the Big Island, across the Big Island. That's that heavy rain that we showed you that was evident on the radar. I guess it's good for me at this point to say that it's coming up on 7:35 Eastern Time. If 1:35 Hawaii Standard Time. If you're watching this on a replay later this evening, please be advised that the satellites and the radars are dated. Food's here.
I just want to let you know they have chicken.
Oh, thanks. I'll get it later. Thank you, Mr. Rayo. It's just letting me know that the dinner has arrived. All right, so here we go. Let's go back to this forecast, and I'm going to just put down. Let's see if we can get the. I'll put the past track on, and I'll also put the arrival of tropical storm force winds. So you follow that green circle here. The gales are going to be, very close to the south shore of Oahu during Saturday morning, and then moving westward from there. The low-level center, the weaker it gets, the faster it's going to move out to the west. So the next few hours ought to be a pretty good indicator of where we're going with all of this with respect to Hurricane Lane. So the warnings continue, as we said, for Maui and for Oahu and Kauai under a hurricane watch, and tropical storm warnings up for the Big Island of Hawaii. It appears to me that you're not going to see, obviously you're not going to see the far right turn into the Big Island. I think the question is whether we're going to see this get very, very close to Honolulu and Oahu before it turns to the west. And that's what the GFS basically does. It brings it very, very close by Saturday morning, and then by Saturday evening it's out and just takes it from there quickly to the west-northwest, and goodbye. And you start to see, you still have rains here, by the way. This is on Monday. With a low-level circulation out to the west, you're still getting an inflow into that low center. So there still is likely it's still likely that there will be downpours and heavy rain right, I would say at least through the first 2 days of next week. Maybe it starts to get better along about Wednesday. Now, I just want to point out that at least from the standpoint of the GFS, it does fire up something well to the east of the Hawaiian Islands later next week. It also takes a weak low to the south, but it doesn't look like either one is going to have any impact here, at least from what we see. Or did I speak too soon? I think I spoke too soon. All right, so you know what? We won't even pay attention to that. Forget that we even saw that. Okay, we got to get rid of a hurricane lane. I'm not even going to bother to take a look at that one if to see what's actually going on in the upper air, because models tend to spit these things out left and right anyway. So it's hard to put too much value into it in the long range. But there've already been two, so it wouldn't be a big shock if we wind up with a third. Okay, now let's come back to the United States, because we do have, to the mainland, I should say. Let's come back to the U.S. mainland and get to what the upper air is doing here. And essentially, we are seeing a ridge building in the east once this little shortwave trough goes by Saturday night, Sunday morning, and that's going to bring in some hot weather. The ridge isn't especially impressive to me. It's kind of on the flat side, and then another trough is going to swing down. The westerlies do come down toward the end of the week and going into the Labor Day weekend, and in fact, there is another stronger trough that swings into the Great Lakes right along on Sunday, December 2nd. So once again, we seem to be seeing the models where they try to pop up a ridge in the east, and at least initially, when we see this out 8, 9, 10 days ahead, it looks like it wants to hold on to it for a long time. And each time that's happened this summer, we've seen the duration of the ridge being short-lived, because something comes along in the upper flow to put an end to the ridge, and it keeps it from getting too hot for too long. I think Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are going to be the 2 hot days, the 3 hot days. It's been a long week, folks. The 3 hot days next week in the Northeast and into the Mid-Atlantic states. And here's your surface. There hasn't been much in the way of shower or thunderstorm activity across the Gulf states. That'll probably change a little bit over the weekend and into next week. High pressure, though, is off the South Atlantic coast. There's no trough here that's close by, so I don't expect to see much in the way of any kind of downpours and thunderstorms until maybe late Wednesday night. Here's your cold front that's going to be arriving on later Wednesday into Wednesday night with that next shortwave trough, and that front comes through. Now, this is something that the models initially were not too keen on, and as we've gotten closer now, all the models seem to do this. Nice big high actually builds up through north of Lake Erie and moves over to New York State at the end of next week. So this could mean a decent shot of cool air, brings down a frontal boundary into the Carolinas with some rain there, and then low pressure with another front opens the possibility to some showers at some point during the Labor Day weekend. I mean, I guess that's probably the early look at all of this. I do want to point out, by the way, that the tropics are going to get active, I think, now as we go toward the end of the month and into the first week of September. Now, I know, and I've said this many times, the Canadian usually likes to spin everything up. It is uncharacteristically been not doing it, so this is, I think, the first Canadian run that I've seen where it actually spins up a couple of systems here, one off the African coast late in the period and another one in the Gulf of Mexico. This is at days 8, 9, and 10. I don't. There are tropical waves that match up to what this model winds up developing, but there's not all the models do anything with it. The GFS does have indications of something happening. The European actually doesn't. Yesterday had tried to do something off the southeast coast of Florida in the longer range, and then now that's not quite there. There's probably some kind of weak tropical wave, but it does have some sort of system near the Cabo Verde Islands toward the end of the period, which puts us right in Labor Day. But it's too far ahead to deal with any specifics. But one of the things I am seeing that argues for the fact that activity should be picking up, the Azores high, which is up until now been pretty far to the south, looks like it pushes up to the north, and there's been generally a dry pattern across the tropics. I think we're going to see something now that allows the atmosphere across the tropics to saturate much more than it has been, and this will enhance tropical activity. There's been a lot of subsidence going on in the Atlantic, a lot of sinking dry air because of the the setups in terms of where the upper lows have been and the upper highs and so on. Well, it looks like now the chess pieces at least are getting rearranged to where we're going to see a bit more of a saturated environment and less in the way of dry air. And it looks like the Saharan dust issue has gone away to a large degree. So that will also argue with at least support the notion that we could see an increase in tropical storm development going forward. So I'm going to minimize this little guy, and let's look at. I want to take a look. This is the Weather Prediction Center's rainfall forecast for the next 7 days, and a lot of rain for the Great Lakes, Wisconsin, on up into western Michigan, extending northward into the Upper Peninsula and into parts of eastern Minnesota and Iowa. Also, a fair amount of rain being indicated with downpours and thunderstorms and convective activity along the west coast of Florida, south of Tampa, down to the Keys, and then back up to just north of Miami and Fort Lauderdale. Otherwise, much of the Northeast looks pretty tame. There's not a whole lot of rain being indicated there. So the darker greens are generally under an inch, or the darker green is actually half an inch or less. So much of the area in the Northeast, from central Pennsylvania on up into New England, looks fairly tame from the standpoint of rainfall. The areas from central and eastern PA southward into Virginia, remember, picked up 3 to 5 times the normal rainfall over the last 45 days or so. And there are some slightly heavier amounts being indicated across Virginia into North Carolina, because that's where the next frontal boundary is going to set up. But I really don't see too much happening from the standpoint of rainfall for much of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. Just a quick look here as we come up on 7:45 Eastern Time. The severe weather that's going on tonight. We do have a slight risk of severe weather from northern Missouri up through Iowa, and then a larger area of marginal risk, and also marginal risk on up into Montana. Look at the huge area, kind of unusual to see it extend so far down into the south, into the deep south, where there's no risk of any thunderstorm activity. Of course, it is busier in Florida. You can see it's kind of firing up in a big way tonight along the west coast. And also we're getting that monsoon shower and thunderstorm activity in parts of the southwest. So I think, it's been a long week, folks. I did a lot of videos this week, so I'm kind of getting talked out here at this stage of the game. So let me come up to the chat board. It'll give you an opportunity for you to ask me what happened here. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I lost you guys. Are you guys all here? Hang on. There's just kind of weird technical stuff going on. Okay, your chat's loading. Apparently you've all been on. Okay, great. I thought maybe I lost you. Thanks for hitting Super Chat, Nick. You don't have to do it, but thank you. 90 or better Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And let me just see. Jason Schaefer here. Green Fire. Jake. Amazing how fast Lane has weakened. It is, it's astounding, Jake, the fact that you have this. I don't even know how quite to describe it. You look at the tropical Pacific, And you see where the Hawaiian Islands are, right along 20 North. You would think that they would get more storms and more direct hits, but they have been so very, very rare. And this is an example of what happens in the upper atmosphere out in that part of the Pacific Ocean, where you get these troughs and these large areas of strong wind shear, so that anything that comes close to Hawaii has a very good chance of not surviving. And only under some odd circumstances have there been storms that have been able to hold together and impact the Hawaiian Islands. You got to go back to 1992 to Hurricane Iniki for the last one that made a direct hit. And the island of Oahu, as I understand, has never seen a direct hit from a hurricane. So go figure. But it certainly has been an interesting forecast challenge, to say the least. Johnny Quest got down to 43 last night. I made it down into the 50s my way. It was a nice, cool night last night. It should be another nice night tonight, down in the upper 50s and low 60s for me. Okay, so I'm just trying to get MJO is coming back in the Atlantic by September. It's coming back. The Madden-Julian oscillation in the tropical Pacific will favor development in the Atlantic. Antonia Smith, I think that's what you're saying. It does. I haven't really looked at that, and I haven't really seen too much written about it. But I'll do a little digging. I maybe see the Madden-Julian oscillation is usually talked about more in the wintertime in the Northeast, as everybody wants it to get into phases 8, 1, and 2, I believe. I'm not a big long range guy, so I don't really pay too much attention to it, other than when I read somebody posting about it. Johnny Quest, he said 55 in the hills of Freehold, New Jersey for Scott Briller. I think it made down into the low 50s in northwest New Jersey last night as well. I have to tell you, I really welcomed it. Sun angle decline, really noticeable at noon now. The lighting is just not the same brightness at noon. Almost a letdown for declining as we head down into December, a declining sun angle. Yeah, I know there's a bunch of folks that get into the sun angle issue with respect to when it comes to the wintertime, and I always yell at them for it. But I have to be honest. I was out last night. I went out during my break time. My mom lives only about 5 minutes from where I work, so I run over there and have a quick dinner. And you do definitely notice a difference in the quality of light this time of year. We are only in 30 days will be the first day of autumn, and suddenly we will have more nighttime than daytime. So that's just that's less than a month away. 4 weeks from now, we're gonna be at that position. So yeah, it kind of reminds you that the summer days are kind of dwindling down to a very precious few, and before too long, we'll be with the sweaters, the jackets, and the coats. But there's still some hot weather to deal with in between. And we are going to see 90 degrees or higher Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. And I'm going to try to get a little bit of beach time in, because this is where the ocean, here where I am, on Long Island, where ocean water temperatures are up close to 80. This is the warmest part of the summer with regards to the South Shore and the ocean beaches. So I like to go swimming, but I like to go swimming in warm water and not in cold water. So usually for me, if I go to the beach, it's the last week or two of August and the first week or two of September when the water is at its warmest. And that, may play a role in the warm waters that are up along the mid-Atlantic and northeast coastal areas. If a tropical system were to come up the east coast, that warmer ocean water, the large anomaly being several degrees Celsius above average, could have an impact on a storm. It could slow the weakening process down that normally occurs north of 35 degrees north, and that could make a difference maybe between a Cat 1 and a Cat 2 if a threat emerges. And I'm not saying that there is going to be one, but we've been seeing these troughs in the east. We've got the water temperatures up here above average. Something to think about I think, going forward. All right, folks, we're going to get the weekend underway a little sooner tonight, so we're not going to do a 50-minute video, and we're going to cut it short now at 25 minutes. Thanks for being here. Those of you watching from Hawaii, please remember, check your local National Weather Service office, weather.gov, or the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, or consult your local government officials regarding any decisions that you want to make, and don't make them off the maps that you see here that I show you, or for that matter, if you any of the maps that you see on the internet. Make sure that you go to those reliable sites that will give you the context that you need and the information that you need. And remember, the radars are dated. If you're watching this on the replay, check over the latest radars and severe weather in your area by going to your local National Weather Service office at weather.gov. We're a participant in the Amazon Services Associates Program and also the Ebates Associates Program, and those are both affiliate advertising programs designed to provide a means for this channel to earn fees by linking to Amazon and Ebates. So if you do your shopping on Amazon, or if you go you use Ebates and go to any retailer, you get your stuff, they throw me back a little coin, and everybody's happy, and I appreciate it for those of you who have done that. Thanks very much, folks. Have a great evening. We will see you at some point over the weekend. I have worked this weekend at WPIX TV, so that's going to probably throw my live streaming off a little bit. I'm thinking what I may have to do is do it around midday tomorrow and Sunday, because I won't be getting home until after midnight Eastern time. So I'm doubting most people will be up after midnight, but I'll do it early in the day, and you guys can come back to it at some point. Other than that, not much else happening, so try to get some outside time. If the weather's great where you are this weekend, be sure to enjoy it, because we've got this weekend, and then next weekend is the Labor Day weekend, and then the summer vacation season is basically over. So take advantage, especially this weekend, if where you are the weather is good, and where I am the weather is good. Good night, everybody.